Hello, and welcome to the EQUUS Film and Arts Fest podcast, the only program for horse lovers who have a fondness for horses in film, art, and literature. Each week, we will have interesting conversations with equestrian filmmakers, artists, and authors from around the world, discussing the nature and challenges, as well as the triumphs of creating their work. Ready to talk horses and film and the arts? Here's your host, Julianne Neal, along with Lisa Dearson, festival founder and director.
Hello, and welcome to the EQUUS Film and Arts Fest podcast. I'm your host, Julianne Neal, and we're here today with Lisa Dearson, founder and director of the fest. How are you, Lisa?
Hi, Julianne. How are you today?
I'm doing really well, thanks. Hope you are too.
Well, we have a beautiful sunny day here, so even though it's only 20 degrees, it's still sunny.
Well, we're competing with you a little bit today. I think it's 27, so that's not typical for South Carolina, but yeah, it's at least sun shines out, so we're happy with that, definitely. Yeah.
27, that's awful down there.
It really is. I mean, when you're from the South, you're just not used to that. So we looked out the window this morning, and I could tell from the frost it was going to be one of those days. The horses are happy to be out, I can tell you that. So, I'm really excited about today's podcast because we're going to talk a little bit about maturity. And the older I get, the more interesting that idea becomes. But I was really, really interested in some of the sessions that you were able to offer in December, actually, at the EQUUS Film and Arts Fest with some of our older or more mature riders, I should say. So from Victoria Esquivel to Bernice Ende, you offered quite a few options for folks who are getting on up in years, didn't you?
Yeah, well, and it kind of led me to a thought, an idea, and this coming year, last year we kind of celebrated the Mustang horses at the festival, and this coming year we're going to celebrate the year of the horsewoman.
Oh, wow.
And how horses empower women, and we have so many interesting new people coming into the EQUUS herd. From Sally Eckhoff, who wrote a super interesting op-ed piece in the New York Times, and you can put a link up for the readers about why do our young horses have to die, addressing the issues in the racing industry. And she's also an artist and an author and a filmmaker, so she's going to become pretty well involved in the festival.
Oh, great.
And then we're going to be bringing, of course, Nita Ryan will be coming back to the festival again, and she's now become the voice of the slaughter horses as they head on their way past her house every day, truckloads full of beautiful horses going to slaughter in Mexico. And it's kind of come to Nita to be the voice for those horses like it has now for Sally to be the voice of the horses for racing. And then we're going to be bringing Bernice Ende back again this year. Her film will be completed.
Wow. And
it's called Lady Longrider, so same as her book title, but she's again someone, not a young rider. She's doing it for the older women. And we've got another super interesting woman named Lee McLean, who has just written a book called Horsewoman. And she is a more mature rider from Canada who is a side saddle rider, and she competes racing with side saddle.
Oh gosh!
And we're bringing Julie Belo will be coming back this year. She's doing some more in Mongolia with her Gobi Gallop, and she didn't start riding until she was in her mid-50s, and now she's out riding thousands of miles. Gosh. And then. Of course, we can't not talk about Misty Wrigley, who is owns Wrigley Media Group, who is our partner. But she's also a gold medal winning world-class competition driving.
Right.
So all of these women, well over 50, have just getting out there and doing it and showing everybody that they can get it done. So
Exactly.
I just thought, wow, we have so many incredible women. Vicki, for start, she's just, to listen to her story and to watch her talk on the panel stage at the festival, just still is mesmerizing.
Definitely. Well, and I thought we'd start with her today because she, you've been focusing on some of the team, the folks behind the scenes that have helped, for several years now with all of the aspects of putting the festival together. And she did a marvelous presentation, a panel discussion this past December. And so we're going to speak with her a little bit today. And then also, you mentioned Bernice Ende, and like I think I said last week, she to me is like the rock star of the horse world because all of the experiences that she's had, and she's just a wonderful speaker as well. So she's talking about mesmerizing. I sat and watched and just was thrilled with her stories. So I think we'll focus on the two of them today, if that's all right with you.
I think it's perfect. I think they're both just great guests to have.
Well, good. Well, definitely you have a trend going for the coming year, and with all the wisdom and I'll just say maturity of everyone that you mentioned, I think we've got a great year in store.
Oh, I think everybody just needs to stand back and watch these women shine.
I agree 100%. Well, we're going to start with Victoria Esquivel. So here we go. So our first guest on this episode of the EQUUS Film and Arts Fest podcast is a local clinician, trainer, and rider. When I say local, it's to the Kentucky Horse Park area, which is the last place I saw her. I'm just so happy to welcome Victoria Esquivel today to the program. Thanks for being with us, Vicki.
Well, thank you for having me.
The first time I met you was at Briarfest at the Kentucky Horse Park, and my partner Bruce was so excited to see you again. You guys had known each other a while back, I think.
A long time. I was managing Pine Knoll for Julianne Vallis years ago when I first moved to Kentucky, and Bruce would come and clinic regularly. So yeah, we've known each other for a while because I moved to Kentucky in 2005.
Wow, so you've been there a while, and I bet it's changed. I mean, the horse park is so beautiful. It's my first time there was when we were there for Briarfest, but you've probably seen a good bit happen there over the years, huh?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Alltech wasn't even built when I moved here. They hadn't even started on Alltech. So, yeah, a lot of it changed. It's, the horse park is 1,200 acres, and it belongs to the state, and it is managed by the state of Kentucky and the foundation, the Horse Park Foundation. And so it has had all sorts of development and changes and growth in the last 15 or 20 years.
Well, and I just want to thank you for talking with me today because when we were at the film festival in December, we were so busy I didn't have a chance to speak with you very much. We were going to record a podcast then, but I was able to capture a little bit of your panel discussion, but I have to say you were struggling with your voice at that point. Is it feeling any better now?
Well, at least now I can talk and I can make a sound. At that point, I was just whispering. You couldn't hear me because it was just a hissing noise.
Right.
It was pretty pitiful.
Well, Well, we had a mic for you, but I don't believe it did enough good for you. So thank you for talking today. And I really was just interested in your topic of the mature rider, first of all, but then you went into biomechanics and classical training and all sorts of things. So can you tell everybody a little bit about what you do?
Okay, I've been riding since I was an infant, so and I'm an old lady, so it's been a long time. But I had brain surgery in 1989, and it was a struggle because I was paralyzed on the right side of my body for a very long time. And so when I got back into riding, I had to learn how to balance and how to do all the physical things all over again. So I had to adapt. Well, because I went through all of that, I have taught over the years. I've taught children. I've taught grown-ups. I've taught every level from beginners to FEI. And what I have found is that my niche actually is a rider that is more mature, that is a little, it's not a young child like 7 or 8 years old, although when they get started at that age, they just are magnificent. They grow into the equestrian disciplines, and they do very well because they grow up with it. But what happens to grown-up people is a lot of them never had a foundation. I was very fortunate. Over the years, I had 4 classical European trainers who had been schooled in classical dressage and classical jumping. And it's very, very different from just jumping out there and showing a couple of times and then teaching people what you know. Mm. So I was fortunate enough to school with Jean-Claude Racinet, J.C. Giacomini, Hans Biss, and, Michael Poulin. Wow. Those people came up with such a strong foundation in making sure that the horse physically could do the job. And in order to know that and make the horse comfortable, I had to go back and study and read and watch and learn from watching movement and reading books that were technical. And then I was fortunate enough to have instructors who were very, very careful to teach the right thing to do to help the horse's body move appropriately. Mm. So that has helped a lot. But understanding where mature riders are, so many people have old injuries, or they have not been physically as active as they could have been. So it becomes very, very difficult for them to be able to relate to a language that you must physically have in order to get what you want out of the horse. And because people asked for it, I just began to focus more and more on that particular avenue. I feel like there's not enough attention given to someone who has just started when they were 30 or 40 or 50 years old. Sure. And that's a huge, huge field of riders that has been neglected, because there's a distinct difference in teaching a young person, a child that's 8 or 9 or 11 years old, who is physically very supple, very strong, very brave and adaptive, and doesn't have the mental issues that we older people have. We have so much more baggage, so much more emotional and mental things to deal with that go hand in hand with our physical deficiencies. Mm-hmm. And so it's very, very important to understand that and to stress to these people that they can't be confused and charmed by the beauty of a video that they see, and they think that they can reproduce what they're looking at. They have to learn to be physically fit, and they have to understand how the horse moves and how the horse communicates. Otherwise, it's just a disaster waiting to happen.
Exactly.
I've seen so many people injured. I've seen so many horses destroyed simply because the human had no idea. He just didn't know.
I take lessons from a trainer here in Camden, South Carolina, Mary Werning, and she had her whole group of students start a Pilates class a couple of years ago, and just that focus on the body and fitness level and everything else going along with the riding, and having somebody as a Pilates instructor that was focusing on that was really special. Well, even I saw in your presentation, you even come in with the graphic with the skeletal structure of the horse and the person, and also you really get in depth with that biomechanics part of it, for sure.
Well, I do, because you see, most of the time people don't understand the parts of their body. When they say, they're being taught or they're taking a lesson, and somebody says, you'll be at a horse show, and you'll hear somebody on the ground yelling at the top of their voice, leg, leg, more leg. Well, the problem with that is different parts of your anatomy affect different parts of the horse's anatomy. So if you use your calf or your heel or your inner thigh or your glute muscles, those pieces of you affect different parts of the horse because of the relationship physically of what the horse feels from your body language. So if you don't understand what makes something else move, you can't possibly drive the vehicle.
Right.
If you don't know where the clutch is, and you don't know where the brake is, and you don't know how to turn the steering wheel, you're in bad shape. And that's a mechanical, that's a machine. A horse has hundreds of different parts. So do you. If you don't know how each part relates to the other, you cannot possibly partner with your dance companion.
Exactly.
You just can't.
Well, so
you have to know.
Do you give lessons to just individuals? Do you work with other trainers on that communication between them and their students?
It varies on what they ask for.
Okay.
I have trainers who call me and say, can you come and do a clinic for my students and myself? Or can you just come and work with me? Like right now, I grew up with gaited horses because my grandparents lived in Mississippi and they had Tennessee walking horses that my grandmother bred and showed and sold. And then she stopped when the Tennessee walking horse issues became unpleasant for her. She just stopped breeding and just stopped marketing the breed because she said that they were destroying the breed with what they were doing. And so, but I grew up chasing cows on quarter horses, jumping on thoroughbreds in Central America because that's what we had, and doing pleasure riding on Tennessee walking horses that belonged to my grandparents. So I had a broad background in all these different horses and the different movements that they have. And then I managed a gaited horse farm for a lady for 10 years here in Kentucky. So I had a trainer who's an eventer ask me for help and asked me if I would come to her farm and help her because she is boarding 2 Tennessee walking horses that are flat shod, so they're handled humanely, but she doesn't know how to get the gait that the owners want from these horses. So right now I'm working with her so that she understands that a lateral moving horse is very, very different, and that your body parts have to match the part that the horse has to use because of their particular type of movement, because of their particular physical being. You have such a difference between how a quarter horse moves and how a warm blood moves and how a thoroughbred moves, and those are all trot horses. So when you have a rider that only rides trot horses and they now have to deal with riding a lateral moving gaited horse, then they're lost because the movement is different. The parts of your body that you have to use to get the things from those horses so that they don't pace, so that they don't do the things that are forbidden in their discipline, you have to understand. If you don't know how to get it, then it's a disaster, and it's very unpleasant for the horse.
Sure.
And I've spent the last 50 years of my life trying to make horses' lives better. And if they're badly ridden, it's a disaster. It's just a disaster. Horses end up bearing the brunt of people's cruelty because of their lack of understanding.
Right.
So I just can't not help when somebody says, will you come? So it's a variety of people. I have kids that event. I have kids, and I say kids because I'm old. But when I say kids, I may be talking about somebody. Yeah, I may talk about, kids, and I'm talking about somebody that's 40 years old.
Oh, good.
I have 2 students in Texas that now own their own facilities, train, breed, show, and do. They're like my little clones.
Oh.
They're what I left behind when I left Texas.
Uh-huh.
And they're wonderful. I'm so proud. I'm so tremendously proud of what I've left behind. You can't leave material things behind. But if you can teach somebody the right thing to do and they do it, then that's your legacy. That's what goes on for the benefit of the horse. And so my goal, my mission through all these years has been to make riders understand horses better so that horses have to pay the price. Because there's nothing that will ruin a horse's life and destroy a horse any faster than bad and improper handling. There's nothing. I mean, you know, Bruce, well, we have the same philosophy. You have to understand. If not, you're doomed. The horse is doomed.
Right. Well, that's why when Bruce and I saw you at Briarfest and you all started talking again, I could tell that y'all had that connection from past times, and you had the same philosophy for sure. Yeah. And you're obviously a good people person. And so Lisa Dearson told me you've got to talk to Vicki. She's a key member of the team. And so I saw you running around at Briarfest helping do things and running around at the film festival. So how did you get involved with all of that? Did Lisa corner you at some event and say,
I have to tell you that I did not. I met Lisa Dearson and Mario Contreras at WEG in 2010.
Wow.
I had volunteered, and so they had given me many different jobs because a lot of different people knew me. I could translate French and Spanish, and so I became part of the translating portion, and they knew that I managed farms. And so I became part of the stable management team. So I was at WEG from I think it was the 9th of September until the 19th of November, through the planning stages and getting everybody. I received the very first horse that came to the horse park from Colombia, and I put the very last little Arabian horse that was an endurance horse on the trailer when he left. So I was there from the beginning to the end. Well, because I had to translate and because I was there for the opening ceremonies and the closing ceremonies, and I was in the stables doing stable management, and Edward Gall had agreed to do a clinic for me right before Totilas arrived. And so he and I became very good friends. And so there was all this community of people from everywhere. And that's when I met Lisa, and that's when I met Mario, and fell madly in love with both of them. Oh. And we have been friends now since 2010. And as I told Lisa back then, if she ever needed anything and I was anywhere that I could help, I was happy to be a part of it. I love being a part of what Lisa is doing. And I absolutely adore Mario Contreras. He is one of the best trainers in this country.
Yes.
And is a good, decent human being. And, you know, I just think that his whole group is wonderful. Mm-hmm. All of the guys that ride for him at medieval times, we've all become friends. We talk, we chat, we exchange ideas. It's just a broad spectrum of people with different careers in the horse business. I'm not much of a show business kind of girl, but the discipline that these guys have is something everyone should admire.
Oh, exactly.
I mean, really and truly, Juan Carlos and Juancho and all of the guys that ride for him are wonderful. Mm-hmm. But he sets the tone because he is so disciplined.
Sure.
And Jill, I can't say enough of her. What a beautiful, beautiful, intelligent young woman. It's just fabulous. So there's nobody that I don't love. I just love all of you. Because we share a common heart.
Right.
And that's always very important.
Well, I'm sure Lisa's thrilled that you live so close to the horse park, because with this new move for the festival to be coming there permanently, or at least I hope it is, she'll have you right on hand, close by, because you live pretty close, right?
Yeah, I'm 45 minutes. I'm 45
Not
minutes
too
from the
far
horse
then.
park, and I have my own farm. I no longer work for anybody else managing or helping them on their farms. I do contract work, like I'll go and ask them and help them if they ask me. But I have 20 acres that my son bought from me in June. It will be 2 years ago,
Wow.
and I have 7 of my own horses and one that boards and is in training on my farm. So I have 8 horses on the farm, 6 dogs, 5 cats. It's a menagerie. It's a zoo.
You stay
But
busy for sure.
it's the life I love. And so what I do is I just commute. When someone needs me, they call me. I teach. There's a wonderful facility in Lexington called West Wind, which is 15 minutes from the horse park and 15 minutes from Hamburg Pavilion. And it's close to a lot of different neighborhoods and whatever. So I go 2 days a week and teach my students there, because they have an indoor arena, which I do not, and it's a good venue to teach at. But I teach at other venues, and if someone calls from Louisville, I have students in Louisville and all over Kentucky, Shelbyville, and Harrodsburg. I live in Harrodsburg, so whoever calls, if they need help, we just make an arrangement, and then I go and help. I have students in Wilmore, which is close to Asbury College, and like I say, I just go wherever I'm needed.
Well, you stay pretty busy, it sounds like. And I know we'll put some information in the show notes for if people want to get in touch with you. But for the folks who are just listening and not reading along, how could they reach out if somebody wanted to contact you for help?
They can friend me on Facebook. I'm on Facebook.
Okay.
They can find me on Facebook, and they can private message me if they want a lesson or they want some help. And that's the easiest way, because I'm outside so much of the time, and I'm teaching or I'm working with a horse. I just simply a lot of times don't answer the phone.
Right.
And so they can send me, if they get me on Facebook, they're sure to get me, because I'll return whatever message they send me.
Right. Well, the presentation for mature riders and training the mature rider and biomechanics and everything, I know is wonderful, and so I'm sure that some folks are going to want to see that again. And we wish you continued health and for your voice to keep improving. You sound so much better already, so I'm so happy.
Oh yeah, at least I have it may be a horse voice, but it's a voice. And there
It's
wasn't
very appropriate.
one. Yeah, there was not one. So it's a whole lot better. And what I did get out of this last thing that we did together at the horse park, when we did the panel discussion on TB,
Yes.
traumatic brain injury, because I had the brain surgery in 1989 and had to come back from paralysis. As a result of that panel discussion, I now have 2 little ladies who have had a real hard time with the people that they were working with, because it's hard for people that are healthy and strong and don't have any kind of a challenge to understand that sometimes if I say to you, okay, sit up straight and tall and put your left leg on, whatever, I can't do that to people that I know, because I know that they cannot. They physically cannot, unless I say, look here, it's this muscle, it's this part of your calf, or this part of your lower leg, or this part of your shoulder that you need to be able to use. And if that's not being used, you're not going to be able to get this movement. So let's work on that. And that is very important for people who have had a stroke, or have had brain surgery, or have had an accident. You have got to understand that they don't feel the way you feel. I have a severed hearing nerve and a severed balance nerve on the right side of my brain as a result of my surgery years ago. So 1989 to 99 to 09 to 19. That is 30 years ago. And I have not heard out of my right ear nor had a balance nerve on the right side of my brain for 30 years.
Wow.
So when I say, you can't just tell me, close your eyes and walk a straight line, because I cannot.
That is
So those
really-
people really need to have someone who understands.
And so for translating, not like you translate from Spanish to English, but you're also able to translate from that language of someone who can't hear, can't understand, can't feel. And that's crucial for a trainer to know.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so hard for someone to understand, especially if you've got somebody that's 30 years old and they've been riding for 10 or 15 years, and now they're teaching other people to ride. It's not a problem if everybody is the same.
Sure.
But if you have somebody who has a challenge of some kind, there's a big language gap.
Well, thank you for being the voice for those folks and being able to translate for us. So you're doing special things, Vicki. Thank you. And I know we're looking forward to a big year coming up with another Briar Fest, another film festival, of course, Equitana coming to the horse park. So you've got a year ahead of you.
I am really excited.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
I
really
bet you'll
excited.
be there every
And I'm
day.
really glad. Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I do love it. I love being around the people that, when I came to Kentucky the very first time in 1991, I got off the plane and I looked around. I walked into a restaurant and I thought, oh my gosh, I want to live here someday, and had no idea that I would live here. But the wonderful thing about, especially Lexington, you can walk into a restaurant and sit down at a table, and the people right next to you are talking about hay and forage and feed and fertilizer.
All those
and,
great things we horse people love.
all those things that you don't get anywhere else. It's awesome.
That's great. That's great. Well, thank you, Vicki. We will be seeing you there at the horse park in the months to come. And so thanks for speaking with us today, and we'll look forward to a bright and shiny new year.
Great. I'm so happy to talk to you, and happy to hear you and listen to your voice. I'm so glad that we've gotten together.
Me too.
I just am so happy.
Me too. Thanks, Vicki, and we'll talk again soon.
Hi, I'm Lisa Dearson, Director of the EQUUS Film and Arts Fest. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Now we'll take a few minutes to hear from Bernice Ende. This is an excerpt from her panel discussion at the EQUUS Film and Arts Fest in December at the Kentucky Horse Park.
I have to thank Outfitter Supply and Tucker Saddle, because Outfitter Supply shipped all my gear over for me, and Tucker Saddle shipped me over from New Mexico. And also Lisa Dearson. It's like, she'd make a long rider. Yeah, I mean, the tenacity to put something like this together,
that may be her next thing. You never know with Lisa what she's going to do. So long riding might be it, or go to gallop or something.
Yeah, we'll see.
But so, everybody keeps saying, you inspire me. I'd love to do what you do. But how many people really would love to do what you do? And tell us what you do.
Well, I think that it is a legendary romantic image to ride across country on horseback, and it is part of our cultural heritage, the horse, and it does represent freedom, and it does represent self-reliance and courage and independence, and I think so many of us in the lives that we live today are searching for those things, strength and just get out of the doldrums of life sometimes, that adventure out there. Oh, it just looks so tantalizing, but it's not. It is so hard, and it's so dangerous, and it's so dirty, and it's so, it just requires, although it doesn't have to be like that. I mean, you can do long rides with support teams, and you could do long rides with, where you set out your route and you have food drops and water drops, and, it can be made much easier. I chose not to do that because I didn't have any money. I had no money, and right. And so, when I first started riding at 50,
God bless.
No,
the first time you rode a horse was at 50?
Oh, no. I rode my mother's belly.
Okay.
I came out riding.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. And I had been riding, and I was in pretty good shape, but I had taught classical ballet for 30 years before I started long riding. And so I was in, fairly good shape, but at first ride, I got off at the end of a 25-mile ride, and I couldn't stand up. I had just simply crumpled to the ground, and I'd hold on to the stirrup and just stretch my back out, get back up, and my shins hurt so bad, and it was just so hard, and I had no tent.
Were you alone?
Of all my rides, alone.
But you said never lonely. Alone, never lonely.
No. I've never had that, compartment in me. It's so intense. There's so much that has to be thought of and taken care of out there, and of course the first ride, the first 3 years were single horse rides. And that outfit that I have up there, that saddle and those packs that I have up there, that's pretty much all I had. I had enough for 3 days. I slept on the ground with just a tarp, my saddle pads, saddle at my head on its horn, and the tarp over my head. I had a Coleman sleeping bag. The only reason I was able to stay alive was because of that dog. Because I'd lay on my side like this, and I'd have her in here like this, and I'd wrap my arms in like that and put the tarp and the sleeping bag over me. I was sleeping out in weather that was 3 above, 4 above. My water bottles froze. I put the water bottles inside my sleeping bag and my feet, and they'd freeze.
How much did you plan at that point? How much were you planning ahead, or did you?
I did. Those first rides, I really planned hard, and now I don't plan at all. When I set out on the 8,000-mile ride, it was like the 8,000 miles, this big one that went across. It was like, by that time I'd ridden across Montana 4 times, so it's like, well, Montana's far, so let's go. You just get to go to, right, so you just go. So you get to Minnesota, well, I've ridden to Minnesota, then I had, but you got to decide, like, where you're going to cross your freeway crossings, where you're going to make your river crossings, where are you going to get water? Is there cattle out here? I'm trying to always take the back roads, like 4-wheeler roads or Forest Service roads, gravel roads, and then secondary roads, and then sometimes I ride freeways.
Oh, wow.
And now you're at a pack horse and?
Right, so the first 3 years were single horse rides, and my dog walked the entire 7,000 miles. I've got doggy booties up there. But it was one of those things I didn't know about, it was like, I was so naive, I was just so, it was just so much more than I could have ever imagined, the intensity of every day, finding food, water, and shelter, and for my horse and myself, and, sleeping on hard ground, and, the uncertainty of it, and, where's the water going to come from? When I got down to the Red Desert, those of you who've read the book realize that I hit the wall down there. I crumpled. And I said, that's it. I can't go any further. 1,000 miles out, hit the wall. I was on my knees, couldn't go anymore. I was in tears. And a rancher picked me up, literally, and put me back in the saddle. And there in the book. And then I finished that ride. And by the time I finished that first ride, though, I climbed into my own skin. I knew I would never go back. I knew that I had been so profoundly changed that life had it just embraced me in such a different way. I thought I discovered freedom.
Yeah.
And to live fearlessly. And you know. Here I am, still going.
And you said you're married to the ride.
Yeah, right.
What do you mean by that? You just can't give it up. It's in you forever.
Yeah, you know, I had been married for a while. I was married for a short time, and I felt like it was the only way I would be able to do it is if I left everything behind, that I chose to commit to that and my life to long riding. I wear a ring. It's a leather ring, and it's you know, the keepers. They're keepers. We all know we have horses. They're called keepers, and I've ridden into many homes, just simply random homes because I need water and I'll ride in, and you know, and it's a single man there, an older single man who now believes that God has just delivered him a woman. And I say, I'm leaving. I am married to my life.
Wow, that's amazing. You just knock on a random door.
That has happened to me so much. And been proposed to, and followed, and chased. Yeah. I've been flattered. I mean, it's like, is you sure you want this? And I was like, you're beautiful. You don't know what I look like when I'm out there. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I've walked into it, like I'll go into a store to get some food and I'm pulling my gloves off. I'm looking in the window at myself and I'm going, oh my God, what have you done to yourself? It's like, my face just is like a prune.
You're
from the wind. It's the George O'Keeffe look.
But the freedom of not caring.
Yes,
absolutely.
The freedom of not caring.
Oh, I care.
It's even better than
what do you think? I'm eagle-less? You know, I was like, oh my
Do
God.
you bring mascara with you when you're out there?
No, you haven't read the book. I have alopecia. When I left on my first ride, I was bald.
Oh.
I'd lost all my hair. I had gone through a divorce and it shattered me. And I'd lost all my hair, eyebrows, eyelashes. I looked like I'd gone through chemotherapy. And I always had a scarf on, and I still today always wear a scarf. But back then, I didn't have any hair. And it really, you know, it kept me from going in and asking for help. I knew everybody was just like, what's the matter with her? She's sick. They're talking about me. And it closed me up. It did. But
how did you overcome that?
Hunger. Need for water, shelter. I guess, as I got further on, although, and then more hair came back. Hair came back after I started long riding. You know, I got happy again. I found myself, and so it's not so bad. But
so logistically, how you're going into a store? You just tie up out front, and horses, dogs, everything.
Your dog stayed with you?
Yeah.
Dog never. Yeah. She always stayed with the horses. I never took her with me. She always had to stay with the horses, and I did not tie her up. She stayed, and you know, I really worked hard to have impeccable skills, like my packing and saddling. To see me pack and saddle, you would see a dance that was choreographed. That, you know, how I slide my hands around the horse, how I take the cinch, how it goes up, how it's released. How a horse is, when I go in, I'm going in, one always is on one side, the other side, depending on who's riding and packing. But I felt that I had to be so like military about
like
it.
Discipline.
Exactly.
That's how you danced, I bet. You got that from your dad.
Absolutely. The dance world has helped enormously. Not just physically keeping me. I still dance. I still, you know, I do exercises. I have exercises I do on the horse, exercises when I'm walking, and then stretches at night. I still do those. You have to. I treat myself like an athlete. I try to, you know, I hang upside down and stand on my hands and yoga and all this stuff. But having a routine and sticking with it, just making myself follow that saved my life many, many, many times.
Have you ever gotten hurt while you're out there?
Many times.
Have you ever worried about the animals being hurt?
Many
and
times.
Had to worry and
Many,
had to
many
figure out
times.
that-
Many times. How, of course, every, grizzly bears and mountain lions and, rattlesnakes and all of it. And, it's been 15 years.
Sure.
It's like you're about to get about it and everything.
Bernice, tell about the time that stallion,
Oh,
talk
about wild horses. Right.
Found you, came upon you?
Yeah, I was crossing. Yeah, I was riding a gray thoroughbred mare on her. She was my second horse out, and she was perpetually in heat. And I was crossing northwest. I was on a 5,000-mile ride, single horse, with her and the dog, and crossing northeast corner of New Mexico. And this was my second ride out. I did not know about open range. I didn't know about windmills and stock tanks and how the cattle were run and how it's arranged, and that you do not camp by water at night because all of the animals come in at night. You camp about a quarter mile from that, and you walk your horses to it and you walk them back in the middle of the night, and you've got a fire going so you can find your way back. It's pitch black out there, and here I camp by a stock tank with a big windmill, and a storm came up, big windstorm come up and blew in javelinas, wild burros, and a stallion with his herd.
Who would have thought?
And
How
tried
would
to
you
kill me,
Oh my God.
coming at me, just circling me, and just,
Whoa.
yeah, that's in the book.
Oh, I can't wait.
But
Did you run?
I just
What do you-
heard-
what did you-
I had to get out of there. Yeah, I had to leave. I had to, in the middle of the night. I mean, this pitch black. I had a headlamp. I always had a headlamp, and I had at that time a stake that I was staking my mare. My horses are picketed by the front leg on a 25-foot line, the front left leg, and it's a padded hobble type thing. And I pulled her in off of that, and I was using that stake and swinging it at him. I had a gun.
Oh,
But
no.
I would never have thought to shoot it. I mean, I'd never, it wouldn't. I could see it. It was an old black, and it was a range stallion, not a ranch stallion, because there's ranch stallions out there and there's range stallions out there. And the range stallions are murders. They will kill you for nothing of it. And I've had them come at me a number of times. They're wild horses. And I was, Claire ran out and came back in. She had cactus all over her, and I know it. And as in between, he'd run out and he'd come back, and sometimes he'd come in and crawling in, and his teeth would be yellow, his ears back, and he'd be crawling in, and he was going to get me, and then he'd leap, and I was trying to saddle my horse in between all this, and it's blowing like the devil out there. Trying to get the saddle. You know what it's like to put a saddle pad on in the wind? And all my gear. I'm throwing stuff on, tying it on however I can. It doesn't matter. I get stuff on. This stallion is trying to mount my mare and pull the saddle off.
Get out of here. He got that close?
Oh my God, yes. I know. It was really anyways, I had to get out of that section of land. There are these huge, big sections of land. You ride, you can go across your cattle guard gate, blah, 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 blah. On the side are cattle gates for your horses and your cattle. And you go through these sections. I had to get out of that section to get away from it. And he followed me until morning. And the only way I found my way out is because of that dog. She led me out of there. I followed her. I know.
Did you, when you left that situation, that immediate situation by the tank, did you gallop off or?
No, I was on the ground walking, leading her. I couldn't possibly get on. My saddle and packs wouldn't possibly hold me on, and it would have been much too dangerous to be on her. Then I was swinging this thing. I'd lead my mare. I'd make a circle, make a circle, and I'm swinging and hitting at this thing. Get out of here! Screaming at it. Make it a little bit further. Yelling and screaming. Get out of here! Following my dog through mesquite and brush and cactus and all the rest of it.
Thank God for Claire.
I know. Oh my gosh, that girl.
Oh my God.
So do you ever get together with other long riders and compare stories like that? I can imagine that anybody else would have any like that. Or that
I've only met a couple of long riders, and for the most part they've all done one ride, and it's like okay.
It's your life.
And you've done
It's
Pacific
exactly.
to Atlantic to Pacific. You're the only person I think that's ever done
I'm
that.
the first person.
I think Forrest Gump did it.
But not
Adam Forrest.
I've not seen that movie. I've had so many people ask me. No.
So this might be a silly question, but you're now in New Mexico, and Truth or Consequences is where she's stationed right now and based. Let's say you're going to start a ride. Do you ride to the start? Obviously, you don't go somewhere just to trailer to start somewhere, do you?
No, I never did. I never had a truck or trailer.
So if you're going to do Pacific to, you got.
I got on in Trigo, Montana. I rode to the East Coast. I rode to the West Coast and home.
Oh my!
I'm gonna buy it.
And it was two winters out.
But now, Truth or Consequences is not usually where you are.
No.
What is home for you normally?
Montana, Trigo. But I mean, that's home. But for 14 years that I was traveling, I didn't go home.
So
I would end there, but I didn't go home. I would just get my stuff ready for the next ride. I was just a continuous. I lived in the tent. I was in my tent for 13 years.
Do you have a camera with you, or do you
I
journal?
did. I carried a small camera. I never had a cell phone, no GPS, and I never had a computer.
Yeah.
Never had a computer. I stopped at libraries and was able to use the computer there.
And do you journal?
I did. Everything was documented. All of my routes, everywhere I camped, the weather conditions, the places that I stopped, and then I had little notebooks.
I saw one earlier. Yes.
I always had a fanny pack like that on my side, and then I always had that size, and in there it would have like the camps, and then all these are just full of addresses and people that I've met, and then that coordinated with an 8x10, and those were stories like Pie Town or the Wild Stallion or stories that were long stories that were like it was like something would happen. It was like I'd ride away from it and it was like, oh my gosh, it was like it was like something just happened to you. A complete story just happened to you. Like falling at 1,000 miles. And, that whole period there of being picked up and resurrected and fed enough encouragement for me to finish the ride. Well, that was a story of itself.
An angel moment.
Trail angels. Yeah, the trail angels.
Speaking of documenting, how did Ren find you, or did you find? I mean, how did the film project start?
Ren. I met Ren on my 6,000-mile ride down in Texas. I left the northwest corner of Montana in the in the spring of 2009, and I rode from Montana, which is, you can see where it's at, up there. Oh, sorry, what's that? Up there somewhere, isn't it? There, that spot. And I rode to Portland and then all the way down to Austin, Texas, where I had Honor, Gray Thoroughbred, and Essie Pearl. Looked like that. I was still on there.
I will find it.
And Claire was riding. My Claire dog. So this third year out, I realized my dog cannot walk anymore, and I bought a horse for my dog.
Get out of here.
Essie Pearl, a fjord, and she was my first fjord, and now I had a dog and pony act. And it changed my rides profoundly. It was like I was causing accidents. You know, people were stopping, and now people were giving me a little money. And by this time now, I was riding into towns at noon.
Good girl.
At noon, and these are little tiny towns. I ride into noon, and the senior centers are having lunch.
Oh.
I can smell them.
Smart lady.
And I ride there and I tie the horses up, and I've got a dog riding my horse. It's like, oh my gosh. And I can play piano. Yeah, I can play piano for them and give them a talk. Could I do that in exchange for a meal?
Absolutely.
And they fed me. I did that. And that's how I got started doing the speaking, was that way. But anyways, so that was my, I bought Essie Pearl in 2008, so in my third year out, and I did a 3,000-mile ride with her down there somewhere.
How did you train your dog to stay on that horse?
I first taught her how to ride in a wheelbarrow, and then I taught her how to ride in a basket with a bicycle, and then she had to learn how to ride bareback and stay up there. And then I made my first doggy box thing was that she laid across like this, and she had a roll bar here and a roll bar there, so she could kind of hold something. And two teeth there.
Wow.
There. But it rubbed her belly. It didn't work very well.
Oh.
But it was okay. But that was my first year out, and I had Essie Pearl. All of my horses always had issues. Essie Pearl was lame, and I'm going to take this horse on a 5,000-mile ride. And I worked on it and fixed her feet. And anyways, but I hauled her down, and because this was the first time I hauled, because her feet had splayed. She'd been fat and had been in a barn for a long time, and the quick had separated from the wall. She had 2 abscesses on both corners that had hard packed so hard that the shoer didn't find it and the vet didn't find it. It took me a long time, weeks and weeks of working with this foot until, oh my gosh, there it is. So I packed them with wool and oils, changed her diet, started riding her, but what I knew she needed was dry land and to walk all day long. Seize those feet up. It worked. But I had to haul her from here down to Needles, California, and I did a 3,000-mile ride like this. And that was my first ride out with 2 horses and clear riding. And then, where was I going with that?
You were a dog and pony show.
You were
just
How to train the dog, right? So she trained across that. Okay, but then I got back, and then I set out on a 6,000-mile ride, and I ride over here, and I ride across the Yakima tribe. I've ridden across quite a few of the tribal nations, and I had met this tribal family they're from the Yakima tribe, and they helped me build a box. But it was just foam rubber, and it wasn't secure. But at least she could sit down now, so she could be up there, and it looked like a little couch. It looked like a couch. It was foam rubber, and it had like a roll around here, and so she could kind of like stay up there. And so then from here down to Roswell, New Mexico, down here, and there I built the box that I have today, and that was a hard frame box with 4 corners padded, so she could stand like this, and a little seat to sit on, and a roll bar here, and
that little horse tolerated all that.
Oh yes, she had no problem with that dog jumping on its back bareback. The fjord has a thick skin and a coarse hair and a flat back. It's hard to balance your packs. It rolls easily. You want to wither for pack horse, but I pack really different and meticulous so that I can gallop with my packs. I can gallop in a moment's notice. I can go They have to be on, and if you saw how my packs are on, it's not like.
And Claire's secure,
and Claire's secure.
Bernice, tell everyone
She's read the book.
Many times, like crazily. Tell everyone how you found Claire.
Oh.
This really.
So I've got a cabin up in the northwest corner of Montana. It's up high, and it's a little log cabin and some land up there. And I was out riding an old mare that I had. It was early spring. There's still quite a bit of snow up there. I usually have 7-8 feet of snow up there. And it was around Easter time, and I just finished. I taught classical ballet, and my studio was a community hall with an outhouse and a wood stove. That was my dance studio up there, and I had these children that came to me from dirt floors. You know, they're really like, you know, they came with lice and dirty underwear. But so we just finished the Nutcracker production, and I had a production, and I called it Not Quite the Nutcracker production. And it was very clever, and it was very successful, and the community loved it, and we had such a wonderful time with it. And I finished with that. I only tell you that because that's how she got her name, was Claire from Clara. And I was out riding this old mare, and there were still lots of berms on both sides of the roads, and it was sunny afternoon, Sunday, and on the left side were 2 puppies. One was dead, and the other was growling at me. They were this big.
Special thanks to Victoria Esquivel and Bernice Ende for being our featured guest on this episode. Tune in next week to hear from Candace Wade and Carly Cade, more members of the EQUUS team. So let's talk a minute about the music that's used in this podcast. I guess we're going to trade out every now and then, but for this first couple of episodes, it's from
Jane Baldinger, who her daughters are featured in the CD, and they've all gone on to be pretty good musicians in their own right now, and they're performing, but they were pony clubbers. So this is kind of a really kind of cool horsey connection with a CD named Pony, which is what the CD is named, and we'll have a link to people to go and listen and maybe purchase their a few of the cuts off of that CD, because it's just great music. I love any kind of good music, but when you tie horses into the music, you know, that just gives us an added punch.
This episode of the EQUUS Film and Arts Fest podcast is sponsored in part by Nature's View, the Marley Project, and JA Media Productions. To learn more about what we do, visit naturesview.us.
Please be sure to tune in next week when Julianne and I have another interesting conversation with one of our EQUUS Film and Arts Fest filmmakers, artists, or authors.